On a boat in Greece, a couple was running music through a Bluetooth speaker. Another woman on board walked over, took the speaker, and threw it into the sea. The clip made its way online and generated significant engagement in the comment threads. The documented public reaction to those threads, attributed to online commentary, ran largely in her favor rather than against her. Disputes over amplified audio in shared spaces like boats and beaches are a documented category of interpersonal conflict, with video clips of direct physical intervention attracting disproportionate public attention when they circulate online. On September 29, 2022, a post appeared on Reddit in the r/glitch in the Matrix community, a subreddit in which members document accounts of what they describe as anomalies and perceived reality. The original poster opened as follows: "I'm losing my mind. I was never one to believe in the paranormal or whatever, but I have no idea what is going on with me right now, and I'm genuinely considering seeking professional help. I live in a really small shared dorm apartment with 2 roommates. There's this hallway that, if you face it, there are 2 bedrooms to your right, 1 bedroom to your left, and a closet at the end of the hallway facing you. The bedroom on the left is right next to the closet. When we moved in, my roommate always complained that they got a closet instead of a bathroom like me and my other roommate had in our rooms. This closet has a bunch of our shared stuff, including my clothes, gifts, keepsakes, whatever. Today I got back from visiting my parents and I came back to put away some clothes from this closet, but I opened it and saw a bathroom with a toilet, shower, and everything. I was only gone for 2 days and we rent this place, so it couldn't have been randomly built or something. I told my roommates, but they said it was always a bathroom and they had no idea what I was talking about. I can't find any of the stuff that was in the closet anymore, even though I had a ton of memorable keepsakes in that closet. What's going on? I spent all day just soaking in my room, feeling miserable. I'm not crazy, but that bathroom was a closet just 3 days ago. I feel like I'm losing my mind. I'm genuinely considering seeing a psychologist right now." The subreddit exists to collect experiences its members interpret as evidence of discontinuity in perceived reality. The content typically revolves around small incidents, an object that disappears momentarily, a brief perceptual shift that resolves on its own. This post was categorically different. The OP was not describing a fleeting irregularity. They described an entire structural element of a shared apartment, a closet, having been replaced from their perspective by a fully functioning bathroom during a 2-day absence. Their 2 roommates had no recollection of a closet ever occupying that space. The OP opened their post by stating they did not hold paranormal beliefs and were already considering seeking professional help. That framing, skeptical and register, directed toward professional evaluation from the outset, distinguished the post from the majority of submissions to the subreddit. 2 tracks developed in the comment thread. The first involved practical approaches. Some commenters proposed that the OP review any existing photographs of the apartment for evidence of the closet. Others suggested investigating whether the space had been documented or classified as a closet and any records associated with the unit. The second track moved into speculation. Commenters offered alternate universes, timeline shifts, and quantum immortality as interpretive frameworks. Some proposed that the OP may have died during their visit to their parents and that their consciousness had moved into a version of reality in which the bathroom had always been there. A commenter identified as Odd Corgi 30 asked the OP what had been stored in the closet. The response was, "I don't know, some clothes, old Christmas gifts, jewelry, some other stuff I can't remember." Some commenters stated that the OP seeking professional help was not only unnecessary but actively harmful. This is a documented fact about what was communicated in the thread. It is not the narrator's position. The OP's response to Odd Corgi 30's question holds an analytical relevance the comment thread did not address. The closet and its contents constituted the OP's primary evidence that the closet had existed. The roommate's testimony contradicted the OP's. No independent physical evidence had been identified. In that evidentiary context, the specificity of the OP's recollection of what had been stored in the closet was the foundational support for the broader claim. Their answer, vague, approximate with acknowledged gaps, is notable not because incomplete recall is unusual, but because the same memory that could specify the closet's contents was the memory asserting the closet's existence. Confabulation, the unconscious generation of false memories without intent to deceive, is a documented neurological symptom in which the brain produces detailed, convincing memories of events or environments that did not exist as the person recalls them, and is associated with several conditions affecting memory and spatial recognition. Memory distortion of the kind described in the post, in which a person is convinced that an entire physical space has changed structurally, is documented as a potential indicator of neurological conditions including dementia and brain tumors. The common thread did not raise this possibility. The discussion remained organized around the subreddit's interpretive frame, an anomalous experience in need of an anomalous explanation. Approximately 16 days after the original post, the OP added an edit to the original text. The edit stated, "Edit October 15, I have a brain tumor." The OP did not specify the type of tumor they had been diagnosed with. No further posts followed. Their documented activity on Reddit appears to have concluded entirely with that edit. Brain tumors are documented to cause memory distortion, hallucinations, confusion, disruption to spatial awareness, and altered perception of physical environments, with a specific symptom profile dependent on the location and progression of the tumor. The documented capacity for tumors to interfere with spatial cognition and memory processing provides a framework for interpreting what the OP described. One documented mechanism relevant here is the brain's capacity to merge memories from different living environments, producing a detailed but inaccurate representation of a current space. If the OP previously lived somewhere with a closet in a position similar to the bathroom in the dorm apartment, a tumor affecting memory and spatial processing could have imposed that prior memory onto the current space, generating a structurally coherent and subjectively convincing recollection of something that did not exist in that apartment as they recalled it. The survival period cited in the source for some adult brain tumors averages 14.6 months. The OP opened their September 29th post by stating they were already considering seeking professional help. Between that date and October 15th, the date of the brain tumor added, 16 days elapsed. During that interval, the comment thread that formed around the post included documented communications from other users telling the OP that pursuing professional evaluation was not only unnecessary but harmful. The confirmed record establishes a specific question about those 16 days. The OP arrived at the community having already identified professional evaluation as something they needed, and what the community documented response during that interval established about the period between that self-identification and the confirmed diagnosis is not ambiguous. Whether the communications directing the OP away from professional help during those 16 days affected the timing of the evaluation they ultimately received is a question the record does not resolve. But the confirmed sequence, stated need, community discouragement, confirmed diagnosis is what the record documents.
Mon Dieu, les voitures elles vont pas exploser. Mon Dieu, mon Dieu, mon Dieu, mon Dieu.
On June 2, 2026 in Antibes, France, a truck loaded with construction equipment descended a slope unbraked and struck more than 20 vehicles. 37 people received minor injuries, according to reports. The driver was detained. Witnesses stated that at the time of the impact, the driver was waving to passersby, a detail that led authorities to order a psychiatric evaluation of the driver. On December 28, 2025, a post appeared on r/paranormal encounters under the title "Please Help, Random Bare Feet in Snow Showing Up in Front Yard." The original poster included photographs of the prints alongside the following: "It rained and snowed all day yesterday, so I decided to check out the backyard. I looked down and there are bare feet tracking around and near my car. I double-checked, it wasn't my slippers, but this was pure bare feet showing. We decided to set out a camera in the yard overnight. When we woke up, there was even more footprints, but nothing on the camera. Throughout the morning and afternoon, I was checking to see if there was more. About an hour ago, there was one more, but it was hard to tell since the snow was melting and there was a bunch of footprints to begin with." Some commenters proposed sleepwalking as a likely cause. Others directed the EOP toward a different possibility. "Check your house for carbon monoxide. One of the residents, including you, could be doing this and not remembering due to carbon monoxide poisoning. An exposure like that can cause hallucinations and memory gaps, which might explain why someone in the house was walking outside barefoot with no recollection of doing it." The OP addressed both in a subsequent update. The OP confirmed that no member of the household sleepwalked and that none had been outside without shoes since the preceding August. A footage clip showing the prints was also uploaded alongside the text. The Ring doorbell camera had been relocated, originally installed at the home's entrance, to the backyard. The camera's performance over the following night is documented in a later update. "Friday night, we moved the Ring doorbell camera that was at the front of the house to the backyard to catch the person who was walking around barefoot. The morning of Saturday, I go outside and there are even more prints. Now check the camera and there was not a person detected and I did not see anybody. Even though the quality isn't great, I would definitely be able to see a grown man or a grown woman walking in our yard." The prints themselves exhibited characteristics inconsistent with ordinary foot traffic. The spacing between them was irregular, not the even stride pattern a person walking directly through a yard would produce. A cluster of prints appeared near the car. Additional prints were found positioned adjacent to the windows along the exterior of the house, placed as though whoever had been there was standing at those locations rather than moving between them. The spatial arrangement, concentrated near specific points rather than distributed along a path, is consistent with a person who paused in multiple locations, not one passing through. No trail was visible entering the property and none departing it. The subreddit's orientation shaped the discussion that followed. Commenters proposed mythical creatures, spirits, and skinwalkers as explanations for the footprints. The OP noted that they had turned to r/paranormal encounters, specifically after the camera failed to record anyone, framing the camera's failure as evidence that no person had been there. Whether that interference is warranted depends entirely on what the camera was capable of detecting under the conditions that night. The comment receiving the most engagement under the original post did not address the paranormal discussion. It approached the incident as a security concern. "Someone is scouting your house. Time to invest in security cameras and lights." A commenter who identified as a reformed burglar offered a specific rationale for why the person responsible might have removed their footwear, drawing on direct experience. "As a reformed bad guy, they're casing your place are probably a peeping Tom. I would take my shoes off when in and put them back on when out. The thing is, shoe soles leave identifiable treads that can be matched in an investigation, but bare feet or feet covered only by socks are far harder to trace back to anyone." One commenter offered 2 words without elaboration: Google Hinterkaifeck. The Hinterkaifeck case is part of the confirmed historical record. In 1922, at a farmstead in Bavaria, Germany, a farmer found an inbound trail of prints in newly fallen snow, with no corresponding trail leading away. Within days, all 6 occupants of the farmstead were found dead. Investigators established that the perpetrator had been concealed inside the home prior to the killings, hidden there for some days before the attack. Several documented distinctions separate the case from the OP's situation. The Hinterkaifeck prints terminated at the property because the killer entered and did not leave. Their absence beyond the farmstead reflected concealment, not an unexplained disappearance. The OP's yard showed no trail arriving and no trail departing. The home's interior had not been disturbed per the OP's subsequent updates. A further distinction, the killings at Hinterkaifeck occurred days after the farmer's initial observation of the prints. The OP's situation had continued across multiple nights without any escalation, a timeline inconsistent with the Hinterkaifeck record. Ring doorbell cameras do not operate on continuous recording. The device activates only when the motion sensor detects movement, and a documented delay exists between that detection event and when recording actually begins, meaning movement that occurs during that interval will not be captured. This gap is not hypothetical. Ring users have documented across multiple reported accounts that the camera consistently fails to register people on approach, recording only their departure if anything at all. Between consecutive detection events, the motion sensor can remain inactive for as long as 30 minutes. This is a product specification, not a malfunction. Additional variables compounded the limitation in this case. Snow and cold temperatures reduce sensor sensitivity and can degrade the Wi-Fi connection the camera relies on for transmission. The camera had also been relocated to the rear of the property, repositioned from its established installation point to a space outside its configured coverage area. Under those combined conditions, the camera's failure to record anyone does not confirm that no one was present. It reflects a gap in what the device was capable of detecting. When snow fell again the weeks following the original post, the OP reported that the yard showed no new prints. The Ring camera's motion sensor is documented to remain active for as long as 30 minutes between consecutive activations. During that window, a person who entered the yard after an initial detection event could remain in that space and move through it without triggering a second recording. The camera recorded nothing across multiple nights. Whether that recorded absence establishes that the yard was unoccupied during those intervals, or whether it reflects the confirmed detection gap that the device itself cannot account for, is a question the camera's documented technical specification leaves open. On October 26, 2024, a traveling fair was operating in La Aurora Dali Canton, Ecuador. Among the attractions was a swinging pendulum ride, a structure in which gondola cars are attached to mechanical arms that swing back and forth, lifting riders repeatedly through arcs that increase in height over the course of the cycle. During operation, the ride's motion appeared to become unstable. A loud horn then sounded. Shortly after, the structure impacted a section of the platform below. A mechanical arm that held the gondola cars then gave way, and the structure collapsed while still in motion. Two gondola cars detached from the ride with riders still in their seats. One car came down directly onto the platform. The other was thrown sideways and struck the ground nearby. Onlookers at the scene scattered as the impact occurred. Others then moved toward the wreckage. According to witnesses, conditions around the wreckage were disorganized and difficult to manage in the immediate aftermath.
Yo que acababa de entrar dije con mis primos a esta huevada, pues nunca le tengo tanta fe y se cayó esta verga.
Responders arrived at the scene and provided initial treatment before transporting the injured to nearby hospitals. 10 people sustained injuries in total. 6 were in critical condition. The injuries included fractures and head trauma. Pendulum amusement rides typically incorporate automatic safety systems, including vibration sensors and load monitoring, which can trigger audible alarms when operational parameters are exceeded, with the alarm designed to initiate shutdown before a failure threshold is reached. Investigators attributed the failure to an arm that had worked loose from its mounting during operation. The gondola car separated from the ride as a result. A loud horn sounded before the structure failed. That confirmed sequence, horn activation followed by mechanical failure, raises a specific question about what the horn registered. Whether the horn indicated that a monitoring or a safety system had detected an operational anomaly before the mechanical failure occurred, and what the confirmed interval between that signal and the structural event establishes about whether the horn's activation was sufficient time for any intervention is not resolved by the available documentation. In BM, Brazil, a vehicle struck another car, and the resulting loss of control sent it crashing into a residential building's entrance. According to reports, injuries were limited to the driver and a pedestrian who came close to being hit. Both sustained minor scrapes. A Reddit post by Steph Goldhound, dated August 2nd, 2014, was published under the title, "Seriously Creepy, a picture of a man with an axe on a decommissioned military frigate being broken up for scrap. Must read." The post contained a hyperlink directing readers to an Imager gallery where the author had published a full account alongside the photograph. The account opened as follows. As I've said in previous posts, I work at sea. Last month, we came into dry dock to carry out refit and repairs. Dry dock is when a ship is brought into a lock, the gates closed and all the water pumped out, leaving the high ship high and dry on the blocks, thus allowing repairs or inspections, etc. of the underside of the hull. Next to us was an old military frigate being broken down for scrap. She had arrived about 2 weeks prior to us. Once the frigate was on the blocks and dry, all the crew left and the old girl to her fate. A sad sight, but that's how these things go. Once all the sensitive stuff had been removed, the dock workers were free to go on. The dock foreman, identified in the account as John, was the first person to board the decommissioned frigate. He moved through the vessel with a camera, documenting work areas across the interior, roughly 200 photographs in total. His working method involved a torch. When approaching each location to be photographed, he carried the torch lit. Before each shot, he shut it off, captured the image by flash, then switched it back on and continued. This means that at the precise moment each image was captured, John was standing in the unlit interior of a decommissioned warship with no light available except the split-second duration of the camera flash. One of those photographs captured a narrow corridor, a cross alleyway positioned deep within the vessel. At the outer reach of the camera flash, at the far edge of the image where light and shadow met, a figure was visible near a corner, appearing to hold an axe. John's boss later reviewed the complete set of photographs. On reaching that particular image, the boss contacted John directly to ask who the person positioned at the edge of the flash was. Attributed to the boss's direct review, John reported that he had not seen anyone while moving through that section of the ship. Attributed to John. Because the frigate had been a military vessel, police were immediately summoned and a search of the ship was conducted. No one was found. A single confirmed entry and exit point existed. A gangway monitored by CCTV. The geometry of the vessel ruled out any other departure route. The ship's sides sat 25 meters above concrete, making an unassisted jump non-viable. A review of available CCTV footage confirmed that no person was observed leaving the vessel after John took the photograph in question. 2 facts were therefore established by the record. The ship had not been departed and the search had found no one. Reddit users obtained the photograph and applied processing to it, raising brightness and adjusting contrast settings to draw out the detail obscured by the surrounding shadow. The result confirmed the shape's nature, a human form, not mechanical equipment or an incidental shadow formed by the corridor's geometry. The processing additionally documented the figure's facial characteristics. The eyes showed no visible reflection from the camera flash, an absence that would not be expected of a living person caught within the flash's range at those distances. The skin registered as gray and waxy in texture, with no properties consistent with normal skin photographed under similar conditions. The most widely cited explanation in the comment thread addressed this setting directly. It just looks like an old hobo who was startled that someone was in his home taking pictures. So he grabbed an axe and peeked around a corner to see what's up. An axe hobo is still scary. Some commenters identify the vessel as HMS Cornwall, a Type 22 Royal Navy frigate then in the process of being scrapped, attributed to commenters. A user who stated they had served on a submarine contributed a relevant observation. Naval vessels contain concealed voids and restricted access sections capable of concealing a person from standard corridor access, attributed to that commenter. Decommissioned naval vessels undergoing scrapping retain complex internal layouts, including sealed compartments, maintenance crawl spaces, and sections inaccessible from primary corridors, conditions that can make a comprehensive search of the interior difficult to complete with certainty. This was offered in the thread as an explanation for why the police found no one. Skeptical commenters proposed that the figure was a staged element, either an accomplice in a mask, a CPR dummy positioned in the corridor, or the product of digital editing, attributed to skeptical commenters. The Imager account referenced John's personal phone as a Nokia 3210, offered as context suggesting the dock foreman was not oriented toward fabricating content for online attention. A user submitted the photograph to an image forensics tool and reported no identifiable signs of digital manipulation attributed to that user. The Imager account noted that this finding did not eliminate the possibility of a physical setup constructed before the camera rather than digitally manipulated afterward. The confirmed record establishes two specific documented findings. CCTV monitored the vessel's single departure point and recorded no one leaving after John took the photograph. The police search of the ship, conducted under military vessel protocols, found no one. Both are attributed to documented sources. If they are both accurate, the question they generate is specific. Where within the vessel's interior was the person photographed during the search? What sections of the ship's internal structure would need to have been inaccessible to the officers who conducted it? And what does the documented co-occurrence of confirmed presence in the photograph and confirmed absence in the subsequent search establish about the interval between those two events? In 2008, a live broadcast was underway outdoors in a rice field. Tetsushi Yanaga, a Japanese television host, was among those present. The location featured a compact wooden platform set within shallow, muddy water, housing a balance challenge between two contestants. The crowd watching the segment called for Tetsushi to participate. He appeared hesitant but agreed and stepped up onto the platform. The round started. Within moments, his balance gave out. He dived forward. The available evidence suggests he anticipated soft water beneath him. The water was only a few inches deep. His head struck hard mud below the water surface with significant force. The impact damaged his neck. He went down face first into the water. He was paralyzed instantly. He could not move and he could not call for help. What followed was documented on camera. Neither the crew nor other participants had any apparent understanding that an injury had occurred. From their position and within the context of the segment, they continued treating the situation as an active portion of the broadcast. Some individuals piled onto Tetsushi, threw mud and laughed. He remained face down in the water, immobile. By the time those present recognized that something had gone wrong, the injury was already complete. He was removed from the water and transported to hospital for assessment. Doctors confirmed the presence of severe neck injuries. Complete paralysis below the neck was a documented medical outcome. Physical comedy performance conventions in televised game show formats condition both participants and crew to interpret exaggerated falls and prolonged stillness as deliberate performance rather than medical emergency, creating a documented interpretive gap in situations where an injury produces behavioral signals that are visually indistinguishable from the expected format of the segment. Tetsushi Yanaga subsequently returned to television, a confirmed biographical fact. The footage documents a specific visible state. Tetsushi Yanaga face down in shallow water, completely immobile, in the seconds immediately following the impact. Those around him were within the same frame. The crew continued the segment. Mud was thrown. The laughter continued. What the confirmed footage record establishes is a defined interval between the visible onset of complete immobility and the point at which recognition of an injury finally occurred among those present. A person in that position, face down, motionless in shallow water in the context of a fall, was visible to everyone in that setting. The question the documented sequence produces is not general, given that face down collapse and total immobility in shallow water were physically observable in that field. What does the confirmed delay in recognition establish about the gap between what was visible and what was understood by those present in the same location at the same time?
U batulhom in-nies. Il-lossa disgrazza kbira. Aħba kemm biċara. Ommi ma ċempillalti jekk il-mara ħadha jdilha dik ħana beter.
L-istrino.
On June 1st, 2026, a fireworks manufacturing facility in Malta's Mogtab area exploded. The resulting detonation was felt across multiple localities throughout the island. No workers were on site at the time of the blast, according to reports. 3 people in the surrounding area sustained minor injuries. Animals housed at neighboring farms and sanctuaries also died. An investigation has since been launched. A post appeared on Reddit on April 18, 2019. The original poster had encountered 2 photographs circulating on a Facebook thrift page, images of a drawer found at the thrift store. The photographs had been shared on the thrift page before being captured and republished on Reddit. The first photograph documented a message written on the interior surface of the drawer. "The truth is under." The second photograph showed the underside of the same drawer. The message there read, "The body lies it." Below it were GPS coordinates. The initial response across the comment thread treated the post as a probable prank. Multiple commenters acknowledged writing similar things in their own youth. "I did that once as a kid. I wrote, 'Don't look for the body under the apple tree in the backyard. You'll find more than you bargained for.' I used to do dumb things like this as a kid, hoping people would find it later. Under ordinary circumstances, that framing would have closed the discussion. What redirected it was the coordinates. When commenters entered them into Google Maps, the pin resolved not to a residential backyard or an empty field, but to the Avon Park Air Force Range, a military training installation in Central Florida covering an area in excess of 100,000 acres. A property owner whose land sat directly north of the pin location recognized the area immediately and responded with a warning against approaching it. "I own recreational property just north of that location. As someone else mentioned, the pin location is inside the Avon Park Bombing Range, or MacDill AFB. We ride our 4-wheelers down to the very southeast end of the property and watch them do bombing runs. Aside from trespassing on a military installation, you do not want to go trekking out there. Lots of unexploded ordnance." This commenter's account established 2 relevant facts. The location was inside an active military bombing range, and the area contained unexploded ordnance, undetonated military explosives that remain in the ground following training exercises. The presence of unexploded ordnance precluded any civilian investigation of the site. Multiple commenters noted that the location also presented characteristics suited to body concealment independent of civilian access restrictions. Ground disturbance produced by sustained ordnance impact would make identifying fresh excavation functionally difficult. The visual signature of recent digging would be indistinguishable from the broader pattern of disturbed terrain. Any physical remains placed within an active target zone would additionally be subject to destruction from subsequent bombing runs over time, progressively eliminating any evidentiary material at that location. One commenter developed a theory about access, proposing that someone with authorized entry to the installation could have exploited familiarity with its layout. If the killer worked there, they would have access, and it's not like the gate guards would be searching their car. There would be some camera evidence, but when you've been there for some time, you know your way around and where the blind spots are. Besides, the specific location is in a remote part that's probably rarely driven past, if at all. This theory framed the location not as randomly selected, but as the product of deliberate knowledge, chosen by someone with internal familiarity with the range's layout, access protocols, and surveillance coverage. The theory did not identify a suspect. It offered a structural explanation for how a person can move within the installation without generating a visible record of doing so. The coordinates themselves contributed a separate analytical dimension. They were recorded to 6 decimal points. By GIS standards, coordinate precision at that level narrows a specified location to approximately 0.11 meters. Not a general region, but a radius smaller than a human footprint. GPS coordinates precision at 6 decimal places is a level of specificity associated with surveying and deliberate geographic marking, a level of detail that exceeds what would be needed for a general direction reference and is consistent with the identification of a specific ground level point. The post drew sufficient engagement that multiple users contacted law enforcement. According to an update the OP posted to the thread, a friend had contacted the Polk County Sheriff's Office directly and learned that a homicide detective had already been notified by a separate individual on the same day, attributed to the OP's update. The OP followed up with a second update shortly after. That update identified an immediate complication. The coordinates resolved near the dividing line between Polk County and Highlands County, generating uncertainty about which agency held jurisdictional authority over the site, attributed to the OP's update. That question of jurisdiction, however, was secondary to a separate logistical obstacle. The site was inside an active Air Force bombing range. Neither department could enter the area without prior military authorization. The OP indicated an additional update would follow once investigators had completed their assessment. That update was never posted. The last recorded activity in the thread is over 6 years old. A review of local news archives and public records from Polk County and Highlands County found no documentation of a physical search of the coordinates ever being officially conducted, attributed to the source's research. The coordinates were written to 6 decimal places. At that level of precision, the location identified is not an area, it's a point. The effort required to produce a coordinate of that specificity compared against the confirmed absence of any documented official search of that specific point is a question the record leaves open. What does the precision of the marking establish about the intent behind it, given that no official investigation of the indicated location appears to have been completed?
A Ponte Paulino, aqui de Sena Madureira, ela está agora interditada e o problema, pessoal, segundo moradores aqui, pessoas ouvidas aqui, é nessas duas pilastras aqui e nessas duas aqui, olha. Elas cederam, né? Não sei se dá de ver daqui, mas quando a gente se afasta mais para a lateral, a gente consegue ver que tem uma descida, como se uma pilastra dessa aqui estivesse descendo, entende? É isso, a ponte está interditada, ninguém está podendo passar, né? Nem pedestres estão podendo passar e, portanto, nós temos aqui um equipamento público que custou 36 milhões, né? 36 milhões, agora fechado. Portanto, gerando prejuízo, né? Porque o dinheiro que foi investido, que era para garantir uma ponte por décadas, né? Porque uma ponte dessa, quando se faz, a expectativa é que ela dure décadas, né? Mas essa aqui durou menos de 2 anos. 2 anos já está assim, olha. E vamos lembrar que esses tempos, não faz muito tempo, eu não me lembro se foi em 2014, 2024, 2025, uma ponte caiu e morreram várias pessoas, né? Aqui, felizmente, isso não aconteceu, né? A ponte foi interditada antes, mas isso aqui precisa ser enfrentado. O governo precisa dar uma declaração, precisa dizer ao povo do Acre o que está acontecendo aqui.
O banzeiro tá batendo.
Será que ele perdeu alguém?
In Santa Madureira, Brazil, a retired judge had been documenting structural deficiencies in a bridge that opened roughly 2 years earlier. The bridge collapsed shortly after the recording ended. According to reports, 4 people were at the location despite it being closed. All 4 sustained injuries. The judge was among the injured and was reported in critical condition. A post appeared on Reddit's r/RBI subreddit on July 20th, 2021 under the title "Police Didn't Investigate and It's Been Bothering Me." The original poster had attached 2 security camera clips alongside the account. The first showed the OP standing outside during the 911 call, the screaming audible in the background.
I'm at Rocky Fork Lake. I'm not real sure the address. I'm at my home.
The second came from a backyard camera aimed toward a narrow field and a small shack on the far side. An outdoor AC unit running at the time partially suppressed the audio, but the recording documented the screaming continuing for several minutes. At around 8:30, 8:45, I arrived home from a quick trip to town to grab a beer. As I got out of my car, I could hear something. I thought for a moment that I had left the TV on and was hearing it from outside. But as I walked to the front of my car and pressed the lock button on my remote, I realized that what I was hearing was screaming. I listened for a second, thinking it was somebody screwing around. But then the woman's voice screamed, "No, stop, you're hurting me, you're killing me," and an adult male voice yelling something I couldn't make out. There was a dog barking from the same direction, as well as a repeated thudding noise. I immediately dialed 911 and told the police. They could even hear the screaming in the background. They said they'd send an officer to drive by, but an hour passed and none came. I watched for them on my security cameras. The screaming was coming from directly where the camera was pointed, but more than 50 feet away across a narrow field. There is a small shack that has a couple of cars usually parked at the road just on the other side of the field. It is bothering me a lot since I'm 41 years old and I've never heard anything so disturbing in real life. The post attracted immediate responses. Some commenters, noting the rural setting, proposed that a fox might explain the sounds. Foxes produce vocalizations that can closely resemble human screaming. The OP rejected this. "Well, I've never heard a fox screaming, 'Stop it, you're killing me,' and the man's voice, screaming, would have been awfully deep for a fox." Other commenters offered less alarming explanations. "It is creepy. It could possibly be from a movie or, I don't know, any chance something could be being filmed in the area, so like this was acting." The majority of the thread concluded that what the OP had recorded was consistent with a domestic violence incident. A female voice, a male voice, a barking dog, and percussion, all documented from a single directional source, carried an evidentiary weight that the Fox and film theories did not address. The documented police response generated its own concerns. The 911 dispatcher had been able to hear the screaming while the call was in progress, attributed to the OP. No officer arrived that night. When the OP followed up the following morning, the property remained unchecked. Officers told the OP directly approach the property and he would be cited for trespassing. Some commenters connected that response to prior knowledge of the location or its occupants, 100% because they know who it was and it was a coworker, family member, or friend. This is why they didn't respond immediately. With the OP warned explicitly off the property, the Fred went quiet through the rest of the summer. On September 7th, he returned with an update. "I guess they finally had a reason to go out and check the property I was trying to tell them to look at. There are sheriff's cars all over the place and cops in gloves walking in and out of this garage and one cop throwing up in the front yard." The update placed law enforcement at the property in numbers. Officers in protective gloves entered and exited the structure. One officer was documented vomiting outside. No official statement followed. The thread received a full follow-up from the OP on February 7th, 2022. "I posted last year about coming home and hearing a female voice screaming for her life. I posted a video with the audio of the scream and got plenty of comments. About 2 months later, the house it was coming from had sheriff's cars all around it. I found out that an elderly man had taken his life by a gunshot and that his son was the only person home and the person reported that his father had taken his life. Fast forward to last week, I was sitting at home watching YouTube when I heard gunshots. I lived in the country and that's common, so I didn't think anything of it. Turns out it was the sound of that son murdering his mother. He was trying to claim self-defense, but he is being charged with murder. I live next door and my security cameras caught the audio of the murder. It also captures the vehicle the son made his getaway in. I've had detectives in and out gathering video footage for the past week." The son identified in the update was Tim Johnson II, 40 years old. Reports indicate that on January 29th, 2022, Tim contacted the Clermont County Sheriff's Office and stated that his mother, Stephanie Cheney, 61, had taken her own life. Highland County deputies arrived at the scene. The physical evidence did not support Tim's account. Multiple bullet holes in the exterior of the house appeared to have originated from inside. Shell casings were recovered near Stephanie's body. A loaded firearm magazine was found near the living room coffee table, confirmed by investigators. Under questioning, Tim gave a full confession to his mother's murder, attributed to confirmed statements. He stated that he had felt threatened because she regularly kept a handgun in her purse. Tim Johnson II was arrested. He was later convicted and received a term of 15 years to life. The Opian commenters advanced the inference that the female voice recorded in July 2021 was Stephanie Cheney, attributed to the OP's stated inference. This is not a confirmed fact. No official determination has linked the July 2021 audio to Stephanie Cheney specifically. The OP's update also addressed an earlier death at the same property. According to the OP, Tim's father, an elderly man, had previously died by gunshot at that location. Tim was the only person present at the time, and he was the one who reported the death. That death had been ruled self-inflicted. The OP stated that investigators were now examining Tim in connection with that death as well, attributed to the OP's update. This is a family annihilator. They are now looking at him for the murder of his father as well. A subsequent conviction for homicide in a domestic setting is a documented factor that can prompt investigators to re-examine prior deaths associated with the same individual, particularly where the earlier death occurred in circumstances where the convicted person was a sole witness in the reporting party. Tim Johnson II's father died by what was ruled a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Tim was the only person present at the time and the individual who reported the death. He has since been convicted of murdering his mother. A second domestic homicide at the same property, with the same pattern: sole witness, self-inflicted account, subsequent investigation. With a confirmed conviction for his mother's murder establishes about the prior ruling on his father's death is a specific question. When a single witness reports 2 deaths at the same location as self-inflicted, and that same witness is later convicted of homicide in the second case, what evidentiary foundation does the first ruling rest on?
Kevin! Come!
A fire erupted inside a mattress warehouse in Belleville, New Jersey, and spread through an entire block. Multiple buildings were destroyed, as were 2 homes. The mayor cited suspected sparks produced by welding operations inside the building as the probable cause. An emergency declaration was subsequently issued, and families from neighboring homes were evacuated from the area. 2 firefighters received minor injuries during suppression efforts. On May 24, 2026, according to authorities, 2 people were walking along a sidewalk in Asbest, Russia. A large section of roofing detached from a nearby building under renovation and came down toward them. The woman saw it coming and pulled the man clear before it landed. Neither was struck. Falling debris from buildings under renovation is a documented pedestrian hazard, particularly where protective scaffolding or exclusion zones are absent or insufficient to prevent materials from reaching adjacent sidewalks. Christina's Court was a reality courtroom television program hosted by Judge Cristina Perez, produced for syndicated broadcast. Its format was consistent with others in the genre, personal disputes presented in a courtroom setting, with audience reaction as part of the production. Renard Spivey held the role of bailiff on the program. One episode featured comedian Sean Harris bringing a claim against his former girlfriend over unpaid rent. During the proceedings, Judge Cristina asked Renard how long he had been married. He answered 7 years. Sean Harris then said, "Look at him, he looks mad." The exchange produced laughter from the studio audience and was received as a comedic moment within the episode. In 2019, Renard Spivey and his wife Patricia were involved in a confrontation at their home. According to reports, the two had been engaged in a heated argument prior to the incident. The dispute reportedly included claims involving steroid use and marital infidelity. At some point during the confrontation, Renard retrieved a firearm. A total of 2 shots were discharged. Patricia Spivey was killed. When law enforcement arrived, they found Patricia's body in a closet. Renard was present at the scene with a gunshot wound to his leg. He stated that the wound to his leg had occurred accidentally. The subsequent trial was characterized by conflicting testimony and contradictory accounts. The court determined that the shooting had been unintentional. Renard Spivey received a not guilty verdict. Unintentional homicide verdicts in domestic firearm incidents require the court to determine that the discharge was not the product of conscious intent to cause harm, a legal standard that addresses the question of intent, not the question of what physical events produced the outcome. Renard Spivey stated that the wound to his own leg was accidental. The court determined the shooting was unintentional and a not guilty verdict was returned. What that verdict establishes is what the court concluded about intent, that the discharge was not the product of deliberate action directed at Patricia, with a confirmed presence of 2 fired shots and 1 death does not resolve, and what the trial record documents without fully closing is the precise sequence of events that produced both outcomes from a single firearm incident. A wound attributed by a Renard to accident, and a death attributed by the court to the absence of intent. Whether those 2 attributed explanations account for both shots or only for one is a question the not guilty verdict answers in the legal sense, while leaving the physical sequence of events in a documented state of unresolved record.
Y ahí ya se ganaron pollos.
A garbage truck driver in Yumbo, Colombia, lost control while driving down a slope due to what appeared to be a brake failure, crashing into many cars. Reports state that nobody was hurt.
Ahí son confiados, loco. Cerco vaya les mete un susto.
Allá, metan allá. Metan más, Yacito. ¡Ah! ¡Gordo, gordo! ¡Ay, Dios santo! ¡Ay, Dios santo! ¡Lo mató! ¡Ay! Se mató el gordo, parce.
Dios mío.
¡Ahí para abajo, loco! ¡El gordo es güey! ¡El gordo! Muchachos, se les dijo, chiquillos, son cerca.
In Cauca, Colombia, a group of men reportedly constructed a makeshift dam across a river to use as a swimming area. They were warned to stay away from the edge but stayed in the water regardless. The dam gave way. One person was swept downstream by the current. According to reports, she was found alive and subsequently recovered further downriver. The date of this incident remains unconfirmed. Improvised river structures such as makeshift dams are a documented hazard, with structural failure capable of releasing concentrated water flow and creating strong currents in areas where swimmers have no warning of the change in conditions.
madre. A la virga.
¡No mames! ¡A la madre! ¿Ahora qué pido?
Llama a la tía.
On June 4th, 2026, a fire broke out inside a storage facility in Topeka, Puebla, Mexico, spreading to 4 gas tankers and triggering an explosion. According to reports, the evacuation involved over 2,000 people. 3 people sustained injuries. Authorities are treating a clandestine operation to extract gas as a suspected cause.
Something blew up. Oh my gosh.
Missed it.
At Cape Canaveral, Florida, Blue Origin New Glenn rocket exploded while engine testing was being conducted on the ground. The blast was felt across cities in the area. The glow could be seen from hundreds of miles out. According to Blue Origin, no injuries occurred. Ground engine tests for launch vehicles are conducted at designated facilities to validate propulsion systems before flight, with controlled protocols designed to contain anomalies, though unexpected failures can produce significant blast effects beyond the test perimeter. Here's a terrifying clip that'll play into your fears. Watch. On December 22, 2024, at approximately 2 p.m., the central span of the Juscelino Kubitschek de Oliveira Bridge over the Tocantins River gave way while a truck was traveling across it. The road surface dropped. Vehicles that entered the river included a truck, 1 car, 4 lorries, 3 motorcycles, and 2 pickup trucks. 18 people were caught in the collapse. The death toll reached 14. 3 remain unaccounted for. 1 survived. A truck loaded with pesticide and sulfuric acid also fell in. Its cargo dispersed into the river. Bridge span failures that deposit vehicles into waterways present a compound emergency response challenge, requiring simultaneous search and rescue operations for survivors and hazardous materials containment when cargo includes toxic substances. In Santiago, Atitlan, Guatemala, a bus collided with a hardware store. Seconds before impact, a pedestrian who'd been on the sidewalk stepped inside the store. According to reports, the vehicle lost directional control due to possible brake failure. Authorities confirmed no injuries. Brake failure in vehicles on steep or winding roads is a documented collision risk, where the loss of braking capacity removes the driver's primary means of speed control and makes course correction increasingly difficult as the vehicle accelerates. This is a tough watch for those who love dogs.
Hola, hola, hola.
Estoy viva, estoy bien. Quita, mi amor.
The volcanic cliff surface is made up of volcanic debris and fragmented shale in a loose, unstable state. Once disturbed, it provides almost no grip. The slope is steep. When the surface is dry and in fragments, traction approaches zero. A person riding a bike shifted her weight sideways to dodge a dog and lost her balance. She tried to dismount before going over, but couldn't. Gravity accelerated her and the bicycle rapidly down. Loose volcanic substrates, consisting of fragmented lava rock, ash deposits, and unstable shale, present a documented traction hazard on slopes, where the material's low coefficient friction and tendency to shift under pressure significantly reduce a person's ability to arrest a fall once initiated.
Estoy viva, estoy bien. Quita.
Check out this horrifying dashcam footage. At a toll plaza, a heavy truck came in at high speed. Rather than go through the booths or hit other vehicles, the driver deliberately aimed for water-filled barriers in the gaps between the toll lanes. The truck collided with them at speed. The front of the truck sustained significant damage, and the toll structure was destroyed. Nobody was hurt. Water-filled plastic barriers at toll plazas and construction zones are designed as sacrificial impact attenuators, absorbing collision energy through deformation and water displacement rather than rigid resistance, reducing force transfer to vehicles, structures, and people beyond the point of impact. In Villanueva, Honduras, a tire worker was underneath a trailer performing repairs when the driver moved the vehicle forward without checking whether anyone was still below. The worker narrowly avoided being struck. According to reports, the incident prompted authorities to urge drivers of heavy vehicles to verify their blind spots before moving off. Blind spot awareness around large vehicles is a documented road and worksite safety issue, with the area directly beneath and immediately adjacent to a trailer representing a zone not visible from the cab without external assistance or a physical check. Another dangerous car video on the way. This clip, a runaway diesel engine. Take a look.
Çekil, bırak.
Yok gitmiyor. Neden ya?
He?
Neden?
Ambaleye kalktı ambaleye.
Ameliye derken?
Yağını fazla koymuşlar motorun.
Yok eminim ki daha yeni baktırdım yağına da bir hafta olmuyor. Geç kenara geç abi. Ne diyorsun yani sen arkadaş?
He?
Olmuş olabilir diyorsun ya.
Ambaleye kalkmış. Yağını fazla koymuşlar.
Ama kullanıyor.
A diesel runaway starts when oil enters the combustion chamber, typically via failed turbo seals or worn piston rings. The engine then begins using its lubricating oil as a fuel source alongside diesel, or instead of it. Cutting the ignition has no effect at that point. The fuel injectors are no longer managing the fuel supply, so they have nothing to cut off. Engine RPM continues to climb. Left uncontrolled, the engine will either seize catastrophically or ignite. The method is to shift into high gear and apply the brakes simultaneously. This loads the drivetrain enough to pull RPM down and constricts the air intake, starving the runaway. The method worked. The rider applied it on camera and brought the runaway under control.
Có sẵn hiếng tiệc à?
Có mặc đi châu à? Chủ hôn thần nuôi được.
Chủ phải là người ăn.
Mì cầu ơi, mì cầu ơi.
Bằng những tiền mà sẵn ăn đá là sẵn tiệc là. Đôi khi là mới được gặp tiệc con dưa.
On May 31st, 2026, an explosion struck Kong Tat village in Shan State, Myanmar, near the border with China. The detonation originated at an explosives depot connected to local mining operations. According to reports, at least 46 deaths had been recorded so far, and more than 70 others were injured. The armed group with control over the area stated that it has opened an investigation. Explosive storage facilities used in mining operations represent a documented high-consequence risk category, where a single detonation event can trigger secondary explosions from adjacent stored materials, significantly expanding the blast radius and casualty potential beyond the initial point of ignition. Sometimes I have no words and can only get right into the clip. This is one of those instances. In the Philippines, several people chose to swim in the gap between two large ferry boats. While they were in the water, the two vessels began drifting toward each other. From the footage, the hulls appeared to be closing in on the swimmers. What stopped contact was the fenders, rubber or metal bumpers that protrude from the hull edges. These preserved just enough separation to keep the hulls apart, and the swimmers were unharmed. Marine fenders are designed as protective buffers on vessel hulls to absorb impact and maintain minimum clearance between boats during docking or close proximity maneuvering, with the fender's projection from the hull determining the minimum gap that can exist between two vessels before their steel structures make contact. On May 23, 2026, Sabrina was paragliding over the Alps in Austria when a small plane struck her. She got a reserve parachute open in time. According to authorities, her injuries were limited to bruises and contusions. Sabrina later stated that surviving it was something she still couldn't quite accept. Mid-air collisions between paragliders and light aircraft are a documented aviation safety risk in mountain regions, where recreational and commercial airspace overlap and visual detection of low-speed aircraft can be limited at altitude. This footage is from Ukraine and captured something utterly terrifying. On a street in Kiev, Ukraine, pedestrians were walking when an aircraft was detected by sound. They moved immediately into the narrow side street and sheltered behind the buildings. Aerial strikes on Kiev typically deploy drones or missiles fired from distance, giving those on the ground minimal time to respond before potential impact. Drone and missile attacks in urban areas are characterized by compressed warning intervals, often seconds between detection and potential impact, which shape civilian response behavior in cities subject to regular aerial bombardment, with shelter and adjacent structures becoming a practiced reflex rather than a deliberate decision. On Monday, May 4, 2026, at around 7 in the morning, Stockton police officers were dispatched to the 2000 block of Nevada Street after receiving reports of a man armed with an axe attempting to break into a home. According to investigators, the suspect, later identified as 25-year-old Moises Andrade, had been seen striking the front door of an occupied residence with the axe, causing significant damage. The situation was especially concerning because there were people inside the home at the time. When officers arrived, they quickly assessed the scene and confirmed that Andrade had attempted to force entry into the residence. While gathering information, they also learned that he may have been heading toward another nearby location, raising concerns that additional acts of violence could occur if he wasn't located quickly. Officers continued their investigation in the area and soon determined that Andrade was likely staying at a nearby home in the 1200 block of Deep Cliff Way. With that information, they moved to that location to try and safely make contact with him. At approximately 7:37 a.m., the officers arrived and approached the residence on foot. They attempted to make contact at the front door, but before anything further could happen, the garage door began to open partway, revealing Andrade inside.
Hi. What's going on? You Andres?
Oh, ¿cómo te llamas?
Yo, Moisés. ¿Por qué?
Moisés, ¿puedes hablar conmigo?
¿Para qué?
Quiero hablar contigo de lo que está pasando hoy.
¿Pero qué pasó?
Eso es lo que quiero hablar contigo. ¿Qué está pasando?
¿De qué o qué?
Por eso quiero hablar contigo. ¿Qué pasó?
The officers immediately began speaking with them, trying to assess the situation and keep things calm. For a brief moment, it appeared the encounter might remain controlled, but that changed quickly.
Vamos a hablar para acá.
¿Pero yo qué hice, pues?
Tú dime a mí, ¿qué hiciste?
No, usted dígame a mí.
¿Tú qué hiciste?
¿Cómo yo qué hice? Yo nada. ¿Qué hice de qué?
Listen.
¿De qué hice de qué?
De lo que pasó.
¿De qué? ¿De
Quédate, hey, quédate para allá, hey, quédate allá. Vamos para acá. Pero eso quiero hablar contigo.
While the officers were still communicating with them, Andrade reached toward a bicycle inside the garage where an axe was tied. In front of the officers, he grabbed the weapon and armed himself again. Recognizing the immediate danger, one officer drew his service weapon while the other deployed a taser, preparing a less lethal option in case it could be used effectively. Even then, officers attempted to de-escalate the situation. They stepped back, created distance, and gave clear verbal commands, repeatedly telling Andrade to drop the axe. But he refused. Investigators say Andrade then took what was described as a pre-assaultive stance, raising the axe in a threatening manner while standing in close proximity to the officers.
Baja eso, bájalo, yo que lo bajo. Te estoy, hey, baja eso.
No me estés apuntando.
He's armed with the axe.
¿Te voy a tirar entonces o qué?
Como tú quieras.
With the situation rapidly escalating and the threat becoming immediate, one of the officers discharged his firearm, striking Andrade.
Hi. What's going on? You Andres? Spanish?
No, Spanish.
Oh, ¿cómo te llamas?
Bien, yo Moisés, ¿por qué?
Moisés, ¿puedes hablar conmigo?
¿Para qué?
Quiero hablar contigo de lo que está pasando hoy.
¿Pero qué pasó?
Eso es lo que quiero hablar contigo. ¿Qué está pasando?
Pues, ¿de qué o qué?
Por eso quiero hablar contigo. ¿Qué pasó?
¿De qué o qué?
Ven para acá. Vamos a jugar para acá.
¿Pero por qué o qué?
Vamos a jugar para acá.
¿Pero yo qué hice, pues?
Tú dime a mí, ¿qué hiciste?
No, usted dígame a mí.
¿Tú qué hiciste?
¿Cómo yo qué hice? Yo nada. ¿Qué hice de qué?
Who is this guy?
¿De qué hice de qué?
De lo que pasó.
¿De qué? ¿De qué hice de qué?
Quédate, quédate para allá,
¿Por qué me estás haciendo?
Quédate allá. Vamos para acá.
¿Qué hice yo?
Pero eso quiero hablar contigo.
Por eso dime qué hice yo.
Baja eso. Bájalo.
No me estés apuntando, no me estés apuntando.
Estoy,
Te voy a dar, No me estés apuntando.
Baja eso.
Que no me estés apuntando. Quita esa mano. ¿Te voy a tirar entonces o qué?
Como tú quieras.
As soon as he was down, officers moved in to secure the weapon and began providing emergency medical aid. They continued those efforts until personnel from Sencal Fire, EMS Authority, and the Stockton Fire Department arrived at the scene. Andrade was transported to a nearby hospital, but despite life-saving attempts, he was later pronounced dead. Authorities confirmed that no officers were injured during the incident. What began as a call about a suspicious individual quickly escalated into a dangerous confrontation involving a weapon, highlighting how rapidly situations can change when officers are faced with an immediate threat. Up in the air, nowhere to go. This is scary.
Estimados pasajeros, les recordamos que deben permanecer sentados con sus cinturones de seguridad abrochados.
Clear air turbulence occurs when an aircraft passes through rising and falling air currents, often near jet streams or thunderstorm activity. These currents are invisible. The aircraft briefly lost lift until the wings recovered. Passengers and any unsecured items experienced a momentary weightless condition. The footage shows no damage and no injuries, but passengers reacted visibly and loose items went airborne. Clear air turbulence differs from storm-associated turbulence in that it leaves no visual or radar signature detectable by standard aircraft weather systems, making it impossible to anticipate or route around and typically providing no warning to crew or passengers before onset. Check out this shocking dashcam footage.
It's okay, it's okay. Can we get out? Yeah, get out, get out. Get
On May 3, 2026, in British Columbia, Canada, a poorly secured boat separated from a moving truck and hit a vehicle traveling the other way. According to reports, the family inside that car came away with minor injuries. Unsecured or inadequately fastened loads on vehicles are a documented road hazard, with detached trailer cargo representing a confirmed category collision risk for oncoming and following traffic. So much madness takes place in Florida, and this clip continues to prove that.
Out here in the middle of the Florida Everglades, and then directly underneath these bridge pillars here is a massive rocket just sitting under here from the 60s.
Somewhere in a swamp, set beneath bridge pillars, sits a rocket silo. The shaft drops vertically over 100 feet into limestone bedrock. At the base of the shaft, a rocket motor or structure is still present. Getting inside requires squeezing through a narrow gap. Metal grating is present throughout the interior, and the man visible in the footage used it to move around. This is most likely a remnant of the Cold War, possibly tied to the Cuban Missile Crisis period. It wouldn't be unusual across the United States. Decommissioned missile launch sites were often sealed and left rather than demolished, and a number remain standing intact in remote spots where civilians have continued to find them years on. In 2011, K7 Panama was a Chilean game show, family-friendly in format, structured around light competitive challenges, and designed to air as a source of regular entertainment for a broad viewership. The program broadcast live. During one episode that year, the host's on-camera demeanor shifted in a manner that was visible and without precedent in the show's normal format, where the program's established register was energetic and designed to generate audience participation. His expression was now fixed and subdued. Contestants at their positions registered the change in atmosphere and stopped engaging with the format. The studio audience registered the same shift with equal immediacy. Before he'd spoken a word, the change in the room was already apparent to those watching at home. The host then delivered the news. A Chilean Air Force aircraft had crashed. On board were military personnel, a number of journalists, and television host Felipe Camiaga. The flight had been organized in direct response to a recovery operation following an 8.8 magnitude earthquake that had struck Chile. According to reports, 2 landing attempts were made. Severe weather forced the aircraft back on each occasion. It subsequently disappeared from radar. No one survived. Search operations located the wreckage. Personal belongings of those on board were recovered from the site, along with the bodies of passengers. Among the items retrieved from the wreckage was a camera. The footage on that camera had been recorded in the interval immediately preceding the crash, documenting ordinary exchanges between people aboard the aircraft. Routine interactions captured from a crew and passengers who had no documented awareness of the circumstances that would follow. On Halloween night, 1992, the BBC broadcast a television program titled Ghost Watch. It was presented to viewers as a live investigation into reported paranormal activity at an ordinary residential address in London. The program's format positioned it as a new-style event, using established public profile as a recognized media figure. Hosted the broadcast, and his presence was understood as lending the production a degree of perceived legitimacy that a less established host would not have conferred. The program was built around a specific scenario. A family living in the residence claimed the property was occupied by a supernatural presence they named Mr. Pipes. Reporter Sarah Green was stationed inside the home to relay developments as they occurred. From a studio, Parkinson and a skeptic received those reports and responded to events as they were communicated from inside the house. The broadcast opened in a register consistent with skeptical inquiry. No anomalous events occurred in the early portion. The skeptic characterized the family's observations as the product of psychological factors or deliberate staging. One of the children in the household was shown on camera to have fabricated an incident entirely. The program gave viewers no immediate reason to anticipate what was to follow. The broadcast then depicted a progression of escalating events. Background movements appeared on camera that were inconsistent with the room's visible contents. Shadows registered on the footage that the room's objects could not account for. A family member identified as Suzanne was depicted in a vocal register distinctly different from her established speech patterns during the broadcast. The delivery did not correspond to her prior on-camera voice. Figures appeared briefly in background positions during multiple segments. Both Parkinson and the skeptic were shown abandoning their earlier composure as events developed. A seance was conducted on air. Conditions within the studio were then depicted as undergoing physical change. Lights flickered, air movement passed through the set in a manner the broadcast presented as inconsistent with the space's normal conditions. Parkinson's on-camera presentation deteriorated. He was heard delivering a children's rhyme, Round and Round the Garden. The broadcast ended as the screen went dark. Ghostwatch was a fully scripted production. It had not been broadcast live. A disclaimer had been placed in the broadcast by the BBC. The documented viewer response: more than 30,000 calls directed to the BBC, hospitals reporting patients presenting with anxiety symptoms and panic-related conditions, parents across the country describing children who experienced nightmares for weeks after the program aired, indicated that a significant portion of the viewing audience either did not encounter the disclaimer or did not register its significance at the time of viewing. The BBC did not broadcast the program again. A disclaimer's efficacy as a disclosure mechanism depends on audience reception as well as its presence, with research into broadcast psychology documenting that viewers who have already adopted a specific interpretive frame for what they are watching are less likely to process corrective information, such as on-screen text that contradicts the frame. The BBC's disclaimer was present during the Ghostwatch broadcast. Its existence in the broadcast record constitutes a confirmed act of disclosure. The disclaimer's function, in principle, is to signal to the viewing audience that what follows is not factual. What the confirmed viewer response establishes: more than 30,000 calls to the BBC, documented medical presentations at hospitals, weeks of reported nightmares in children, is that the disclaimer's presence did not function as an effective disclosure mechanism for a substantial portion of the audience on the night of broadcast. With the simultaneous confirmation of the disclaimer's presence and a documented scale of viewer distress does not resolve, is whether the failure was a function of the disclaimer's placement within the broadcast, its on-screen visibility, the specific point in the program at which it appeared, the degree to which viewers had already committed to an interpretive frame that rendered the program live and factual in their understanding, or some combination of these variables. The confirmed record establishes that the disclaimer existed and that the audience response occurred regardless of that existence, a specific evidentiary gap that the broadcast record itself does not close. Two Navy aircraft collided on May 17, 2026 at the Gunfighter Skies Air Show in Mountain Home, Idaho. Luckily, none of the 4 crew members were hurt when they ejected in time. Pretty scary, right?
Paranoid fantasy I could think of would not have prepared me for the 2 words the neurologist bludgeoned me with that day. Parkinson's disease.
Michael J. Fox built a prominent career across film and television, with recognizable roles in Back to the Future and later as a central cast member in the sitcom Spin City. In 1991, at age 29, Fox received a diagnosis of Parkinson's disease, a condition classified as progressive and neurological, with effects on movement and motor control. He chose not to make the diagnosis public during the years that followed. In 1998, while he was a principal performer in Spin City, he disclosed the diagnosis publicly. Parkinson's disease produces motor symptoms including resting tremor, rigidity, and postural instability, with symptom onset and progression variable between individuals, meaning an individual in the early stages of the condition may be able to manage visible symptoms through deliberate physical positioning and prop use in a controlled environment. In his documentary Still, Fox described the physical adjustments he made on set to manage symptoms in the early period following his diagnosis. According to his account in that film, these included using desks or doorways as a brace for postural stability, keeping his hands engaged with props as a means of reducing the visibility of tremors, and moving his hands into pockets when no prop was at hand. Each of these was a deliberate functional adaptation implemented within the normal visual register of a television performance without altering the observable content of his work. At the time of broadcast, viewers interpreted these physical adjustments as elements of Fox's on-screen performance, choices attributable to character behavior or an established acting style.
Red? Joe? Pleasure to see you guys, as always. You know, I was just thinking. And still, no one outside of my family knew.
Fox's account in Still identifies them as adaptations developed specifically in response to the early symptoms of his condition. The distinction is confirmed by his own documentary record. What viewers read as performance choices was, concurrently, a set of documented management techniques for early-stage Parkinson's symptoms. Surveillance footage in Israel captured this heart-stopping moment.
ומה זה? אחי, מסכן. קפץ מהמשאית, אחי, לא היה לו ברקסים. תראה מה זה, לא היה לו ברקסים, אחי, תראה איזה מזל. תראה איפה היינו, אני עמדתי שם, הוא היה הורג אותי, אחי. איזה מזל, תראה מה זה.
A truck driver was filling up gas before a high-speed truck came in and crashed into this gas station, almost striking him. A convenience store close by was heavily damaged. Fortunately, there were no reports of injuries. In January 2020, Timothy Bluffnick appeared on Family Feud, hosted by Steve Harvey, alongside several family members including his wife Rebecca. Family Feud is a network game show in which families compete by guessing survey responses to common questions. Bluffnick was a competitive and engaged contestant throughout the episode. He interacted fluently with Harvey, gave responses that registered with the studio audience, and the family won their round. As part of the taping, Harvey posed a personal question about the wedding. What was the worst mistake Bluffnick made on that day? Bluffnick's response was 2 words, I do.
Honey, I love you, but said I do.
The footage documents 2 specific reactions. Rebecca Bluffnick's expression registered visible discomfort. The studio audience's response was awkward, a pause that did not fully resolve into laughter or silence. Harvey acknowledged the moment and moved the program forward. The exchange was not revisited on air. By 2023, the circumstances between Timothy and Rebecca had changed substantially. The couple was living at separate addresses. They had not officially divorced, but the relationship had deteriorated to the point where Rebecca took a formal legal step. She filed for a restraining order, citing documented concerns about her safety as the basis of that application. On February 23, 2023, gunshots were reported near Rebecca's residence. Law enforcement arrived and found Rebecca dead. The medical examination recorded 14 gunshot wounds. Physical evidence at the scene indicated that the door to her bedroom had been breached by force. The entry pattern was consistent with force accessed from outside the room. Investigators identified Timothy Bluffnick as a central focus of the case. He was arrested on March 13th, 2023. He was subsequently tried and convicted of homicide. In August 2023, the court imposed a sentence of life imprisonment. Protective orders in domestic contexts represent a documented legal instrument through which individuals formally communicate a credible fear of harm to the court system, with the filing creating a confirmed record of that stated fear at a specific point in time prior to any subsequent incident. Rebecca Bluffnick's restraining order filing established a confirmed legal record, a documented declaration submitted to a court that she believed her safety was at risk from a specific individual. The filing is not an informal statement or a third-party report. It is a formal legal action through which her stated fear was committed to a court record at a specific documented point in time. That filing predates her death on February 23, 2023. What the record confirms is that a formal legal process had registered her stated concerns before the date she was found dead at her residence. What the confirmed existence of that filing does not establish is what institutional response followed its submission, whether any protective measure was in place at her address on the night of February 23rd, and what the available record does and does not show about the interval between the moment her stated fear became a court document and the morning gunshots were reported at her home. On May 12, 2026, on the Cumbra de Maltra stretch of the Puebla-Orizaba Highway in Mexico, a truck driver came under attack. No fewer than 3 men were involved. The group directed green lasers and high-intensity lights at the driver, a documented ambush method used to impair vision and compel a stop on isolated highway stretches. The driver did not stop. He accelerated and struck at least one individual among the attackers. A fatality has been reported by some sources. Authorities have issued no official confirmation of this. The Cumbra de Maltra section is widely regarded as among Mexico's most hazardous routes for cargo transport. Christine Chubbuck worked as a television news reporter at WXLT-TV in Sarasota, Florida. At the station, she hosted Suncoast Digest, a weekly program addressing local community affairs, covering public safety and human interest stories among its regular subjects. Those who worked alongside her and those who knew her personally described a journalist with genuine dedication to the work, who approached the program with sustained professional commitment. The same accounts also documented difficulties in her personal life that ran alongside that professional identity: loneliness, depression, and a persistent sense of isolation, attributed to colleagues and people who knew her. She was described as someone who experienced genuine difficulty establishing personal connections with others, and who carried those personal difficulties largely without outward indication. On July 15, 1974, Christine Chubbuck was presenting a live edition of Suncoast Digest. The program was in its regular time slot. The segment's visible progression gave no indication to viewers or to those working in the studio that what was taking shape fell outside any ordinary broadcast pattern. Mid-broadcast, she paused. She then stated in language directed at the audience that in keeping with the station's policy bringing viewers the latest in blood and guts, she would now provide a first. She produced a revolver from beneath the desk and shot herself on air.
In living color, exclusive coverage of an attempted suicide.
The broadcast was immediately cut and the station moved to alternate programming. Live broadcast infrastructure in the 1970s did not include the delay and cutoff mechanisms that are standard in contemporary live television production, meaning that what aired in a live transmission reached viewers in real time without the buffer capacity that would allow a production team to interrupt transmission before content was received. Christine Chubbuck became the first person confirmed to have taken their own life during a live TV broadcast. That designation is documented in the historical record of the event and has not been disputed. The footage from that broadcast has not been made publicly available since that date. The prevailing view holds that the footage was either destroyed or secured in private storage. That assessment is attributed to widespread belief and has not been confirmed. The recording is cataloged among the most significant items of lost media in broadcast history. No documentation has established the current status or location of the footage. Its current whereabouts remain unconfirmed. In Bangkok, Thailand, a freight train hauling containers struck a public bus that had stopped on the railway tracks amid heavy traffic. According to reports, the crossing barriers did not close before impact. Reports also indicated that the train operator had received a radio alert about vehicles positioned on the tracks but gave no acknowledgement. 8 people aboard the bus were killed. At least 35 others were injured. Authorities have opened an investigation. On May 11, 1985, Valley Parade Stadium in Bradford, England, was hosting a football match. The occasion carried particular significance. Bradford City supporters had assembled in large numbers to watch their team clinch the divisional title. The stadium's wooden main stand had deteriorated through years of use. Beneath those seated structures, layers of accumulated debris, paper, discarded trash, and other flammable material had been allowed to gather over an extended period without removal or intervention. During the match's spectator let a lit cigarette fall through the floor planking beneath the stand. It reached the dry debris accumulated below. A small flame ignited. The flame spread rapidly through the accumulated dry material. Within less than 2 minutes, the fire had consumed the entire stand. Thick black smoke rose from the structure. Audio recorded from the live broadcast that afternoon captures a commentary voice at the scene. The heat is now becoming tremendous. I'm sitting immediately opposite the main street.
The heat is now becoming tremendous. I'm sitting immediately opposite the main street.
As the fire spread, the crowd attempted to move toward exits. The stadium's configuration presented significant obstacles. Narrow pathways and a limited number of exit points created bottlenecks that slowed evacuation considerably. Dense smoke reduced visibility to near zero for many attempting to navigate the concourses. Some could no longer determine the direction of the exits. The confirmed casualty total, 56 dead. More than 200 additional people sustained injuries. Combustible debris accumulation beneath wooden stadium seating represents a documented fire risk category, where the combination of dry flammable material, enclosed airspace, and proximity to ignition sources creates conditions for rapid fire development that can exceed a structure's capacity to contain within a very short time frame. Subsequent investigation established that authorities had previously received a warning regarding the accumulation of debris beneath the stands. No effective corrective action had been documented or taken in response to that warning. Responsibility was attributed to both the club and local officials. The regulatory response that followed was substantial. The prohibition on wooden stands was implemented across the United Kingdoms. At sporting events, smoking was prohibited. Stricter safety standards were enforced at venues throughout the country. The confirmed investigative finding that a prior warning had been issued and no effective action followed places a specific question before the record. The warning's existence confirms that the hazard was identified. What the documentary record does not by itself resolve is the mechanism by which an acknowledged risk remained unaddressed, whether the warning was evaluated and dismissed, not evaluated at all, or received but not routed to those with authority to act. The confirmed absence of a corrective response establishes that no documented action was completed. It does not by itself confirm the reason that action was not taken, which is a distinction the record leaves open.
Oh, look, you guys. Look. Yeah. Oh my god, why is he so low? Oh!
On May 10, 2026, in Superior, Arizona, a family driving on a highway had a very close call when a small plane came down on the road for an emergency landing, narrowly missing them. For the aircraft's owner, the plane had stalled just after leaving the ground. No one was reported injured. That 70s show aired from the late 1990s into the early 2000s, accumulating a significant viewership over the course of its run. Danny Masterson was a consistent presence in the core ensemble, portraying Stephen Hyde, a character defined by a laid-back, rebellious persona that became one of the show's more prominently recognized recurring figures. The performance contributed to the show's established tone, and the character became broadly familiar to a large audience during those years. During the same years the show was airing and building its audience, circumstances were developing that would not reach formal legal attention until years later. Multiple women eventually came forward with accusations of sexual assault against Masterson, with the alleged incidents dating to that same window of the show's broadcast years. Among the accusers, several shared Scientology membership with Masterson, and that shared institutional affiliation became a significant factor as the case was investigated and prosecuted. Allegations of sexual assault in entertainment industry contexts are documented to face extended delays between the alleged incident and formal reporting, with institutional dynamics, power differentials, and concerns about professional and personal retaliation among the documented factors that contribute to those delays. The Los Angeles Police Department opened a formal investigation into the allegations in 2017. According to reports, fears of retaliation and dynamics tied to the Church of Scientology contributed to the extended delay before legal action commenced. That characterization is drawn from reporting and attributed accordingly. Criminal charges were subsequently filed and the case proceeded to trial. In May 2023, Masterson was found guilty of rape on 2 separate counts. Later that year, a sentence was imposed. Masterson received a life term, with a minimum of 30 years required before parole eligibility.
Said the testimony and descriptions of Scientology beliefs during the Masterson trial were, quote, uniformly false. Masterson did not testify at his own trial. His lawyers also called no witnesses. The defense had argued all along that these acts were consensual.
That 70s show was my favorite sitcom growing up, and Hyde was one of my favorite characters, so this is a shame. What do you think? On May 14, 2026, a festival honoring the patron saint was underway in Amatitan, Jalisco, Mexico. A man was carrying a torito, a wooden bowl-shaped frame loaded with fireworks, when a stray spark from the device traveled to a gas cylinder at a food stand nearby, which then exploded. 2 people were killed and at least 26 others were injured. 6 of those injured were in serious condition. Phil Hartman was a performer whose career spanned multiple formats in American television comedy. His work on Saturday Night Live, News Radio, and Simpsons, where he contributed voice work to recurring characters, placed him among the most technically accomplished performers of his generation. His capacity for impression work, character construction, and comedic timing operated across all 3 contexts. Among its Saturday Night Live castmates, a specific designation circulated. They referred to him as the glue, attributed to castmates. That characterization identified the role he occupied within the ensemble, the ability to anchor a sketch, to support other performers rather than redirect focus toward himself, and to maintain structural coherence in a scene when other elements were in flux. Hartman's third marriage was to Bryn Omdahl. Those familiar with the relationship characterized it as troubled and marked by persistent instability. Bryn Omdahl had a documented history of substance misuse involving alcohol and drugs attributed to those close to the couple. Hartman's friends and colleagues reportedly raised concerns, directly advising him on multiple occasions to leave the relationship. He did not take that course. According to reported accounts, his priority was maintaining the family unit, and he chose to remain in the marriage as the situation deteriorated. On the evening of May 27, 1998, Bryn Omdahl had consumed alcohol and used cocaine. She returned to the residence before dawn on May 28th. An argument followed between them. Hartman was asleep in the bedroom at some point during or after the argument. Bryn Omdahl entered with a firearm. He was shot multiple times. He did not survive. His death occurred in that room while he was asleep. In the period immediately following the shooting, Bryn Omdahl departed the residence and traveled to the home of a friend. She told the friend what had occurred. The friend did not initially accept the account attributed to the friend's initial response, but that position changed after directly observing Bryn Omdahl's state. Police were then contacted and informed of the situation. Bryn Omdahl went back to the residence. Officers arrived and found that she had barricaded herself inside a bedroom. She died by suicide inside that room. Inside the residence, law enforcement located Phil Hartman's body. In the period following his death, cast members from Saturday Night Live and News Radio provided statements. Those statements characterized Hartman as a skilled performer and described him as among the most dependable individuals they had encountered in the industry. The descriptions were consistent across those who had worked alongside him on different projects. His reliability and his ability to make those around him more effective were the qualities identified most frequently. Production on News Radio was suspended following his death. The program eventually resumed. His character was ultimately removed from the ongoing narrative of the series. When Das was a European television program with a sustained broadcast history, reaching combined audiences numbering in the millions across Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. The format placed contestants in the position of performing unusual or physically demanding stunts, with celebrity guests alongside them and live audience voting determining outcomes. The program had operated in that format long enough to become an established cultural reference in its broadcast region. Its appeal was broad enough to draw participants including Cameron Diaz, Justin Bieber, and Tom Hanks, cited as examples of the show's reach. In December 2010, Samuel Coe, 23 years old and a stunt performer in training, appeared on the program. He had constructed a stunt intended to use spring-loaded kangaroo shoes, a specialized apparatus designed to augment jump height and provide the propulsive force needed to clear a sequence of moving vehicles, to jump over those cars as they crossed the stage in sequence. One of the people driving those vehicles was his own father. His father occupied the fourth position in the sequence of cars. The first car was cleared without incident. A reset was required after the second attempt, and the sequence resumed. The third car was cleared as intended. That fourth car was operated by Samuel Coe's father. Samuel Coe did not achieve sufficient height on that jump. His head made contact with the windshield. He came down face first onto the set before the assembled studio audience. The complete sequence from the successful first jump through the failed fourth unfolded before the audience in real time. The camera feed was cut from the studio at that point. The host ended the broadcast. Both of those actions occurred within the immediate aftermath of the fall. Samuel Coe survived. Confirmed medical findings established 2 shattered vertebrae. He was paralyzed below the neck. Confirmed medical outcome. The injury was permanent. Live television productions maintain broadcast delay and camera switching protocols specifically to manage the transmission of unplanned events, but those controls apply only to what reaches the broadcast audience, not to what is witnessed by those physically present in the studio at the time of the event. The host subsequently resigned from the program, confirmed. Samuel Coe later appeared in film productions, a confirmed biographical fact. The broadcast audience did not see the full sequence of events as they occurred on the studio floor. The host ended the program before the footage could be transmitted, but the studio audience was already present for everything, in real time from the first jump through the fall. The feed reaching homes was cut. What the people in the room had observed was not. The broadcast controls that a live television production maintains, camera switching, delay protocols, the ability to cut the transmission entirely, govern what leaves the building and reaches a viewer screen. They do not extend to the people already inside the room, and they do not operate retroactively on what those people have already seen, given that the camera feed was cut and the broadcast was terminated while the studio audience had witnessed the complete sequence of events in real time. What does that confirmed and simultaneous distinction between what was broadcast and what was directly witnessed establish about where a live television production's control of its own content actually ends? On June 7, 2026, at approximately 8:17 in the morning, an officer with the Jonesboro Police Department attempted to initiate a traffic stop on South Culver House. What began as a routine stop quickly escalated when the driver refused to pull over. Instead of stopping, the vehicle accelerated away from the officer, immediately turning the situation into a brief pursuit. As the driver fled, the officer observed multiple traffic violations, including running a stop sign without slowing down for oncoming traffic, creating a clear risk to others in the area. Rather than continue a prolonged pursuit, the officer gathered information on the vehicle and discovered it was registered to an address on Nisbet Street. Using that information, the officer headed toward that location in hopes of identifying the driver or locating the vehicle. When the officer turned south onto Nisbet Street, the suspect vehicle was found parked in a gravel lot behind an apartment complex. Additional officers quickly arrived to assist, and the vehicle was cleared to ensure no one was inside. The driver was soon identified as Jerry Cornelius Brown. Witnesses in the area reported seeing him run from the scene shortly after the vehicle was parked, confirming that he had fled on foot. Officers began searching the immediate area, and it didn't take long before Brown was located nearby. When officers made contact, he complied with verbal commands and was taken into custody without further resistance. Following his arrest, Brown was charged with multiple offenses, including fleeing, possession of a controlled substance, driving with a suspended license, reckless driving, failure to appear, and an out-of-town warrant. As the officers continued working the scene, they conducted an article search in the area where Brown had been found, looking for any items he may have discarded while running. During that search, a police canine named Rocky became involved. At some point, Rocky scaled the fence while tracking or searching the area. When it came to bring the dog back over, his handler, Officer Zach Hobbs, attempted to lift him back to his side. During that moment, something went wrong. As Officer Hobbs tried to assist the dog over the fence, Rocky appeared to become startled or injured. The dog yelped, possibly after being scraped during the maneuver, and suddenly turned on his handler.
Plots, plots, plots! Here! Here! Plots! Here! Here! Come on! Come on! Come on! Here! 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 Come on! Here! Louie! Louie! Rocky! Out! 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 Help me! Help me! Help me! I'm getting dog bit! I'm getting dog bit! Out! Louie! Out! Louie! 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 Louie!
Rocky began biting Officer Hobbs, inflicting multiple injuries in a matter of seconds.
Louie! Rocky! 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 Ah! Okay. Okay. Hey, that's good. That's a good boy. That's a good boy. That's a good boy. Here. Right here. Right here. That's a good boy. Yeah. Grab his harness. Grab his harness. That's a good boy. I need EMS.
The situation was quickly brought under control with the help of an Arkansas State Police trooper who assisted in restraining the dog. Officer Hobbs sustained several bite wounds to both his arms and his upper right thigh. He was treated at the scene before seeking further medical attention at a nearby hospital. Despite the unexpected turn during the search, both Officer Hobbs and Canine Rocky recovered from the incident. By the following day, the two were reunited. What started as a routine traffic stop quickly developed into a foot pursuit, an arrest with multiple charges, and an unusual and unfortunate incident involving a police canine, highlighting how unpredictable even standard calls can become. At a sports center in Myeong, South Korea, a woman in her 70s was spilling out of the parking lot when she backed into another car. She then drove forward into the building, breaking through a window and dropping into the underground pool below. Around 8 people were in the water when it happened, though they were in a different part of the pool and away from the spot where the car entered. Swimmers got her out of the vehicle before it fully sank, and an instructor started CPR. Authorities said the driver sustained minor injuries, as did one swimmer. Speaking to police afterward, the driver said she has no recollection of the incident. Wild, huh? On December 19, 2025, at approximately 6:24 in the evening, officers with the Ewing Police Department responded to a 911 call reporting a stolen vehicle. The call indicated that a white Kia had been taken in the area of Clover Avenue. While on patrol in a marked police vehicle, Officer Edward Lester spotted a car matching the description of the stolen Kia. Instead of immediately initiating a stop, he followed the vehicle for a short period without activating his emergency lights or sirens, likely trying to confirm details and avoid alerting the driver too early. Eventually, as the vehicle continued through the area of Coolidge and Pennington Avenues, Officer Lester activated his lights and sirens in an attempt to pull the Kia over. The driver, however, refused to stop. At that point, the situation escalated into a pursuit. Officer Charles Wyckoff and Jason Ulrich joined in separate patrol vehicles, also with their emergency lights activated, as they attempted to bring the fleeing car to a stop. According to investigators, the Kia began driving at high speeds and in a reckless manner, putting other drivers at risk.
Pennington, permission to pursue.
Money, take the line, right?
Right on Mellon.
Traffic light speeds 50. Left on the Climate Class track. Next light speeds 40. Failed in the parking lot. Heading back towards Pennington. Traffic still light. 243, hold on. That's fine. Just made a right on the Pennington.
Left on Prospect.
Traffic still light. Speeds about 45.
We got a motor vehicle accident. We got a motor vehicle. I got a pole on top of me.
As it traveled northbound in Prospect Street, the driver ran a red light at the intersection of Prospect Street and Parkway Avenue. That decision had devastating consequences. As the Kia entered the intersection, it collided with an uninvolved civilian vehicle, a red Subaru, that was traveling eastbound through the intersection. The Subaru had 4 occupants inside at the time of the crash.
We got a motor vehicle accident. We got a motor vehicle. I got a pole on top of me.
The impact was severe. A juvenile passenger inside the Subaru was ejected from the vehicle during the collision. Despite emergency response efforts, that child later died from the injuries sustained in the crash. The other occupants of the Subaru were injured but survived, with their injuries reported as non-life-threatening. The driver of the Kia also sustained injuries that were not considered life-threatening. Following the collision, the Kia continued forward and crashed into a traffic signal pole at the intersection. The force of the crash caused the pole to collapse, falling directly onto the Kia and also striking Officer Lester's patrol vehicle. Officer Lester was injured as well, but was treated for non-life-threatening injuries. In the aftermath, the Mercer County Prosecutor's Office took over the case, particularly handling matters involving the juveniles who were inside the stolen Kia at the time of the pursuit. What began as a vehicle theft investigation quickly turned into a high-speed chase that ended in tragedy, highlighting the dangers that pursuits can pose not only to those involved, but also to innocent people caught in the path. In Mkoani County, Kenya, the Moroni River has no paved road crossing. The only way across is through the water. Following heavy rains and flash flooding, the river rose and the current increased substantially. A group of people attempted to cross using a tractor. The floodwaters swept the tractor and those aboard downstream. The man in red reached safety. It was reported that 2 others died, though that has not been confirmed. Flooded river crossings at unimproved fords represent a documented category of fatal incident in regions without bridge infrastructure, where floodwaters significantly exceed normal depth and current speed, removing the visual and tactile cues that make a crossing appear manageable under normal conditions. In Ireland, a tractor struck a van that was parked and unattended. The van's owner was elsewhere at the time. They would come back to find their vehicle damaged and the tractor stopped nearby. The most likely explanation involves a hay bale obstructing the tractor driver's line of sight. No injuries have been reported. Agricultural vehicle collisions with parked vehicles are a documented road incident category in rural areas, where wide loads, tall cargo, and limited cab visibility can reduce a driver's ability to detect stationary objects in their path. In a residential area of Gujarat, India, people noticed a fire breaking out in the parking zone and moved to douse it with water. What they had no way of knowing was what was stored there. Over 40 LPG cylinders had been stockpiled in that parking zone. Someone had been hoarding them there. One of them developed a leak. That single leak was sufficient to ignite all of them. An explosion followed. Everyone who was present came out completely unharmed. LPG cylinders stored in confined or poorly ventilated spaces represent a documented fire and explosion hazard, where a single leak can accumulate flammable gas concentration sufficient to ignite from a nearby flame source, with multiple cylinders compounding the explosive yield significantly. Security camera footage from an evening recorded the moment a man on a walk came across a tiger. The encounter was unplanned on both sides. Each one had no awareness the other was nearby until the moment they met face to face. The response was immediate. Both turned and left in opposite directions. Tiger encounters in residential or semi-urban areas are a documented occurrence in regions of South and Southeast Asia where tiger habitat overlaps with human settlement, with most recorded encounters resulting in both parties retreating rather than engaging.
我操，天塌了！太原一创城就出事儿。
In the Shaojian district of Taiyuan, Shanxi province, China, a high-rise building caught fire. The structure sustained heavy damage. 24 people were injured. Reports say the blaze was extinguished. No fatalities had been confirmed so far at the time of the reporting. High-rise building fires present documented challenges for suppression and evacuation due to vertical fires spread through stairwells and utility shafts, extended evacuation distances from upper floors, and the difficulty of deploying aerial suppression equipment above certain heights. On December 16, 2025 at around 4 p.m., San Diego police officer Kellen Taitafa de la Rosa and another officer attempted to make contact with a man riding an electric bike in the 2900 block of Balboa Drive inside Balboa Park. The man, later identified as 55-year-old Alan Baker, also known as Tracy Diggs, immediately fled from the officers, first on the e-bike and then on foot.
Wait, pull over.
He's not gonna stop, is he? He's not gonna stop.
Hey, pull over. Stop.
He's not gonna
Stop, guys. Hey, stop. Hey, stop. Oh, shit. Shots fired, shots fired. Drop the gun!
The chase came to a sudden and violent end when Baker turned toward Officer Taitafa De La Rosa and fired a round from a handgun. The officer was not struck. He responded by firing 5 shots in return, hitting Baker and sending him crumpling to the ground.
Drop the gun! Don't move! He threw the gun to the left.
I'm ready. He's right here.
We're taking him outside scene.
Hey, it's cool. If you're moving up, taking him outside scene.
Taking him outside scene.
You shot me already 3 times.
Additional officers rushed to the scene as Baker was taken into custody. Police immediately began rendering medical aid, continuing until San Diego fire rescue personnel arrived. Baker was transported to hospital where he was treated for serious but not life-threatening injuries. After firing at the officer, Baker's handgun was found in a nearby brush. The district attorney's office has since charged him with attempted murder of a peace officer, assault on a peace officer with a semi-automatic firearm, and possession of a firearm by a felon. The sinkhole was a delayed consequence of local excavation and construction-related subterranean water leaks from pipelines. This emphasizes the necessity of continuously inspecting the ground and buildings during underground excavation in order to prevent the road from abruptly failing. On October 2, 2025, just before 6 p.m., detectives with the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department's North District Violence Reduction Team and Violent Crimes Task Force moved into the 900 block of North Grand Avenue to serve multiple felony warrants. Investigators believe 36-year-old Cartonio McBride was hiding inside a detached garage. They had been briefed that McBride was wanted on serious charges, including unlawful possession of a firearm by a violent felon, unlawful possession of a firearm by a domestic batterer, theft, robbery, and driving while suspended. After surrounding the structure, detectives called McBride out. He stepped from the garage with his hands raised and initially appeared to comply. As he approached, he suddenly stopped. Detectives continued issuing commands and explained why he was being detained. When told to turn around, McBride refused, saying he was not doing none of that. He then turned and began reaching toward his body.
Keep your hands up. Walk towards us. Walk.
Yeah, she's weird.
Walk towards us through the fence right here.
Fence line right here.
Walk towards us. Walk towards us through the fence. I understand that. Walk towards us through the fence. There's police officers on both sides of that garage. Come on.
Keep your hands up.
Adam 240 is at your McBride, subject to your
You want to go less lethal?
Put your hands
since
up.
You got taser.
We're giving you lawful commands.
Good. We're on ED1.
Keep your hands
Go
up.
ahead, Alyssa. Since
Hands up.
Alyssa has less lethal.
Keep your hands up now.
We got commands.
We got commands.
I'll go
Walk
hands
to me.
when she gets it.
Walk to me. Keep walking. Listen to our command. You're about to get tased, man.
What is going on?
Walk to us now.
That's what I'm doing.
Right. Keep walking. Walk to the sound of my voice now, man.
Come here.
You keep
Walk
on
to
messing
me.
around.
Walk.
Keep walking.
What do you want me to do, man?
Jones, hold on.
Shit.
Walk towards me.
No, what is going on, man?
Walk towards
What's
me.
going
You're
on?
gonna go in handcuffs. Walk towards
Why?
me.
What did I do?
Cartonio, you have warrants, okay? That's what this is about. Turn around.
Man, I'm not doing nothing.
Hey, motherfucker, you're about to get tased.
Detective Hunter deployed her less lethal taser. Almost immediately, Detective Jones fired his service weapon. McBride ran a short distance before collapsing. Even on the ground, he continued to roll away from officers and reached with his hands. Detectives Vert and Hunter then discharged their firearms. Additional officers arrived with a ballistic shield, closed in, and took McBride into custody.
Hey, motherfucker, you're about to get tased.
Tase him.
Get down there! Down there!
Keep your hands where I can see them or you're gonna get shot. I will not give you another warning. You pull them,
Down there!
towards me.
No, what's going on, man?
Walk towards
What's
me.
going on?
You're gonna go in handcuffs. Walk towards
Why?
me.
What did I do?
Cartonio, you have warrants, okay? That's what this is about. Turn around.
Man, I'm not doing none of
Hey,
that, bro.
motherfucker, you're about to get tased.
Down there! Down there!
Keep your hands where I can see them or you're gonna get shot. I will not give you another warning. You pull them down.
Officers rendered medical aid until medics arrived. McBride was transported to Eskenazi Hospital in critical condition. He was formally arrested on multiple outstanding warrants, including unlawful possession of a firearm by a serious violent felon, theft, driving while suspended, unlawful possession of a firearm by domestic batterer, and a separate robbery warrant out of Johnson County. Despite the intense confrontation and the belief that McBride was armed, no weapon or firearm was found in his vicinity. No officers or uninvolved community members were physically injured during the incident. On Friday, January 9th, 2026, Edmond police officers made contact with 55-year-old Azita Afapour near the intersection of Santa Fe Avenue and Edmond Road after noticing her soliciting in the area. What began as a routine interaction quickly escalated. According to investigators, Afapour became aggressive and suddenly lashed out at one of the officers, using a fingernail file as a weapon. Faced with the unexpected attack, officers deployed a taser in order to subdue her and regain control of the situation.
Okay, ma'am, just to let you know. So he is going to issue a citation today, okay? He's going to issue a citation for solicitation. Well, I'm going to let him explain that to you, okay?
Police already told I can stay here.
They told you today? Okay.
No, it was around Christmas they told me.
Okay, all right, I'll let
citation.
him explain that to you. He'll be back in just a second.
I don't want to
okay?
talk to him.
Okay, well, he's going to be the one issuing it to you.
Do you want to make a movie?
Make a movie?
Yeah, because if you're his supervisor...
I'm not trying to make a movie and I'm not trying to give you a hard time. I'm just explaining to you what he... Back up! Get on the ground! 694, start me a supervisor, taser deployed. Put your hands behind your back, do it now! Put your hands behind your back! Cover. Cover. Yep. I don't know what she's got in her hand. Do not move, do you understand me? Do not move. She's got so much comments on I can't get... Hold what you got. That's what she had in her hand.
696 on the start fire. She's bleeding from the face.
She's on that phone now.
Okay. Hey, roll over. Okay. Stay where you're at. What are you trying to do?
I'm injected. If anybody can hear me, they injected me.
Make sure she's got nothing else on her.
If anyone can hear me, they are injected.
Holy crap.
I look up from talking to the camera and I see you.
I'm bolting this way. I got my taser out, but
she had something in her hand like this.
I thought it was a knife. It wasn't until I got it out of a...
Where are you bleeding from? I was on the
Just leave her running. Fine. She was fine. He went back to his car. I gave him the information, and I went and made contact with her at the pole. And then she just flipped.
She was transported to a nearby hospital for evaluation before being booked on assault-related charges. Police have not disclosed whether the officer sustained any injuries, and the incident remains under review as the investigation continues. Thanks for watching. Stay vigilant, friends.